Have you ever noticed something strange? The more desperately you want something, the more distant it seems to become. You think about it constantly. You worry about it. You search for signs. You imagine how happy you'll be when it finally arrives. Yet, despite all your effort, it often feels as though what you desire remains just out of reach. Then something unexpected happens. You become tired of chasing. You stop obsessing. You stop measuring every day by whether your desire has appeared. You find peace within yourself. And suddenly, the very thing you wanted begins to move toward you. It feels almost like a mystery. Why does it often arrive when you no longer need it? This is one of the great paradoxes of manifestation. The answer is not that the desire was wrong. The answer is that your relationship with the desire changed. When you need something in order to feel complete, you unconsciously affirm its absence. You continue telling yourself that fulfillment exists somewhere outside of you. But when you discover fulfillment within yourself first, something remarkable happens. The struggle disappears. The resistance fades. You stop chasing and start allowing. Most people believe that desire itself is the problem. It is not. Desire is natural. Desire points you toward expansion, growth, and new possibilities. The challenge arises when desire becomes dependency. When you believe that your happiness, peace, or sense of worth depends on obtaining something in the future, you place your fulfillment outside of yourself. You become trapped in a state of waiting. What if true manifestation is not about getting something? What if it is about becoming someone? What if the secret is not to force life to give you what you want, but to become inwardly aligned with the reality you seek? What if the moment you stop needing it is the moment you finally become capable of receiving it? In this message, we will explore 5 powerful principles that reveal why detachment is not loss, why inner possession is more important than outer possession, and why the things you stop desperately chasing often arrive when you least expect them. By understanding this paradox, you may discover that what you have been seeking has never been as far away as it seemed. One of the greatest paradoxes in the process of manifestation is that the more desperately you need something, the more you reinforce the experience of not having it. This can be difficult to understand because most people have been taught that strong desire, constant effort, and relentless focus are the keys to achieving their goals. While desire itself is not the problem, the feeling of need often is. Desire can inspire and guide you toward a new reality, but need carries a different message. Need says, "Until this happens." Need says, "Something is missing from my life right now." And every time you repeat that message emotionally, you strengthen your awareness of absence rather than fulfillment. Think about how people behave when they desperately want something. They constantly check for signs. They wonder when it will happen. They compare their situation to others. They become anxious whenever they do not see immediate progress. Their thoughts remain focused on the gap between where they are and where they want to be. Even though they are thinking about their desire all day long, their dominant emotional state is one of lack. They are not experiencing possession, they are experiencing longing. And longing, no matter how intense, continues to affirm that the desired reality is not yet present. Imagine standing in front of a mirror and repeatedly declaring that you do not have something. No matter how many different ways you say it, the message remains the same. The feeling of need works in a similar manner. It continually directs your attention toward what appears to be missing. The mind becomes occupied with questions such as, "Why isn't it here yet?" or "What am I doing wrong?" These questions may seem harmless, but they keep reinforcing the assumption that fulfillment is still somewhere in the future. As long as fulfillment remains in the future, It never feels fully available in the present. This is why many people experience a surprising shift when they finally stop chasing. They become tired of worrying. They release some of the emotional pressure. They stop making their happiness dependent on a particular outcome. In that moment, something changes. Their attention is no longer fixed on lack. They begin to feel lighter, calmer, and more complete. Ironically, this is often when opportunities begin to appear. Not because they stopped caring, but because they stopped reinforcing the state of not having. The key lesson is simple yet profound. Wanting something is natural, but needing it can become an obstacle. The more you depend on a desire to complete you, the more you emphasize its absence. Real transformation begins when you can desire something while remaining inwardly fulfilled. When you no longer feel empty without it, you stop sending yourself the message that it is missing. Instead, you begin cultivating the feeling that fulfillment already exists within you. So if you find yourself constantly worrying about when your desire will arrive, pause for a moment and examine the feeling behind your thoughts. Are you thinking from possession or from lack? Are you feeling complete or incomplete? The answer matters because your emotional state influences your perception of reality. The moment you stop needing your desire to validate your worth, happiness, or peace, you free yourself from the cycle of longing. And in that freedom, you create the space for a completely different experience to emerge. The paradox is that the less you need it to feel whole, the closer you move to the state in which it can naturally become part of your life. Most people believe possession begins when something becomes visible in the outer world. They think they own the house when they receive the keys, have the relationship when they see the commitment, or achieve success when others recognize their accomplishments. Because of this belief, they spend their lives waiting for external circumstances to give them permission to feel fulfilled. Yet true possession begins long before any physical evidence appears. It begins in consciousness. Before something can become a reality in your experience, it must first become a reality in your awareness. Consider how every achievement starts. Before a building exists, it exists as an idea. Before a journey is taken, it exists as a decision. Before a goal is accomplished, it exists as a possibility accepted by the mind. The visible world is often the last stage of a process that begins invisibly. What you consistently accept as true within yourself gradually shapes your expectations, influences your decisions, and affects the way you respond to life. In this sense, inner possession comes before outer possession. The challenge is that most people are conditioned to trust only what they can see. They look at their circumstances and allow them to determine what they believe. If there is no evidence, they assume there is no reason to feel confident. If results have not appeared, they conclude that nothing is happening. Yet this approach keeps them trapped in a cycle of waiting. They postpone confidence until after success arrives. They postpone gratitude until after abundance appears. They postpone peace until after their problems disappear. As a result, fulfillment always remains just beyond reach. Possession in consciousness requires a different approach. It asks you to experience the feeling of having before the evidence arrives. This does not mean pretending or denying reality. It means allowing yourself to mentally and emotionally accept the reality you desire. If your wish were already fulfilled, how would you feel? You would likely feel calmer. You would feel relieved. You would feel grateful. You would not spend every day worrying about whether it was coming because, in your mind, it would already be yours. These feelings are signs of inner possession. When you begin living from this state, something important changes. Your attention moves away from what is missing and toward what is present. Instead of constantly searching for proof, You start cultivating certainty within yourself. The desire no longer feels distant because you have accepted it inwardly. The struggle begins to fade because you are no longer trying to force reality to change before allowing yourself to feel fulfilled. This shift also changes your relationship with time. When people feel they do not have something, they become obsessed with when it will happen. They count days, measure progress, and worry about delays. But when possession begins in consciousness, the urgency weakens. You stop chasing because you no longer feel separated from your desire. You have already welcomed it into your awareness. You have already given it a place within your inner world. The paradox is that many people spend years trying to possess something outwardly while never possessing it inwardly. Yet the moment they accept it within themselves, everything begins to feel different. Confidence replaces anxiety. Gratitude replaces longing. Peace replaces struggle. Whether the outer result appears tomorrow or later, they are no longer living in a state of absence. So remember this principle: possession does not begin when the world confirms it. Possession begins when you accept it in consciousness. The more natural it feels within you, the less dependent you become on external proof. And when your inner world reflects fulfillment instead of lack, you create the foundation upon which new experiences can emerge. What you truly possess in consciousness has a way of shaping the life you experience, often in ways you never expected. One of the most misunderstood ideas in manifestation is detachment. Many people hear the word and immediately assume it means giving up on their dreams, lowering their expectations, or pretending they no longer care about what they desire. But true detachment has nothing to do with surrendering your vision. In fact, it is quite the opposite. Detachment is not the absence of desire, it is the absence of fear. It is the ability to hold a desire in your heart without allowing it to control your emotional state. It means wanting something deeply while remaining completely at peace if it has not yet appeared. When people are attached to an outcome, they often become emotionally dependent on it. They believe that their happiness, confidence, or sense of worth depends on achieving a specific result. Because of this, they spend their days worrying about timing, searching for signs, and constantly checking whether progress is being made. Their minds become trapped in a cycle of anticipation and disappointment. Even though they desire success, love, abundance, or achievement, their dominant emotional experience is anxiety. They are not enjoying the journey because they have convinced themselves that fulfillment exists only at the destination. Detachment breaks this cycle. It allows you to reclaim your emotional freedom. Instead of saying, "I must have this in order to be happy," you begin saying, "I would love to experience this, but my peace does not depend on it." This subtle shift changes everything. You stop approaching life from desperation and start approaching it from confidence. You no longer feel as though something outside of you has the power to complete you. You recognize that fulfillment is a state you can cultivate within yourself right now. Think about the difference between holding a bird gently in your hands and gripping it tightly. The tighter you squeeze, the more tension you create. The more tension you create, the less natural the experience becomes. Attachment works in much the same way. When you cling to a desire with fear and urgency, you create inner resistance. Your thoughts become dominated by doubt, impatience, and worry. Detachment is like opening your hands. You still value the desire, but you no longer strangle it with anxiety. You allow it the space to unfold naturally. Many people discover this principle through personal experience. They spend months or years obsessing over something only to see little progress. Then one day they relax. They stop forcing. They stop worrying. They focus on living their lives. And surprisingly, the very thing they wanted begins to move toward them. This does not happen because they stopped caring. It happens because they stopped resisting. They released the emotional pressure that had been keeping them focused on absence. Detachment also reflects trust. It is the quiet confidence that says, I do not need to know exactly how or when this will happen. Instead of trying to control every detail, you allow life to unfold. You remain open to opportunities, ideas, and unexpected paths. You continue believing in your desire without becoming consumed by it. This creates a state of calm expectation rather than anxious waiting. So, if you truly want to understand the paradox of manifestation, remember this: detachment is not giving up, it is giving up fear. It is releasing the belief that your happiness depends on a future event. It is choosing peace while still honoring your desire. The moment you stop chasing fulfillment and start living from fulfillment, you become free. And in that freedom, you often discover that what you once desperately pursued can finally find its way into your experience. Detachment is not loss, it is the doorway to inner power, trust, and lasting peace. One of the most transformative shifts you can make is learning to feel fulfilled before the physical evidence of your desire appears. Most people live according to a simple formula. First, the manifestation arrives, then they allow themselves to feel happy, grateful, confident, or secure. They believe fulfillment must be earned through external results. As a result, they spend much of their lives waiting. They wait for the relationship before feeling loved. They wait for financial success before feeling abundant. They wait for recognition before feeling worthy. In doing so, they place their emotional well-being in the hands of future circumstances. But what if fulfillment was never meant to be the reward at the end of the journey? What if fulfillment was meant to be the starting point? This idea challenges the way most people think because it asks you to generate the emotional state you desire before there is any visible proof. Yet this is where a profound change begins. The moment you stop postponing your peace, confidence, and gratitude, you stop living in a state of lack. Instead of waiting for life to give you permission to feel fulfilled, you choose fulfillment now. Think about how you would feel if your desire had already become reality. Perhaps you would feel relieved because the struggle is over. Perhaps you would feel grateful because something wonderful has entered your life. Perhaps you would feel secure because uncertainty has disappeared. These emotions are not locked away in the future. They are available to you in this moment. The challenge is allowing yourself to experience them without demanding external confirmation first. Many people underestimate the power of emotional states. They believe their feelings are merely reactions to life. But your feelings also influence how you experience life. When you consistently feel anxious, you tend to notice problems more easily. When you consistently feel grateful, you tend to recognize opportunities more readily. Your emotional state shapes your perspective. It affects your decisions, your expectations, and even the way you interact with others. This is why becoming fulfilled before the manifestation appears is so important. It changes the lens through which you view your world. Imagine two people pursuing the same goal. One feels incomplete and desperate. They believe their happiness depends entirely on achieving the result. The other feels grateful, confident, and at peace even before the outcome arrives. Which person is likely to enjoy the process more? Which person is likely to make clearer decisions? Which person is likely to inspire trust and confidence in others? The difference is not the goal itself. The difference is the state from which they are living. Becoming fulfilled before the manifestation appears does not mean pretending everything is perfect. It does not mean ignoring challenges or denying reality. It means choosing not to make your emotional well being dependent on circumstances. It means recognizing that peace, gratitude, and confidence are states you can cultivate now. The more often you occupy these states, the more natural they become. And when they become natural, you stop feeling as though something is missing from your life. This is where the paradox reveals itself. When you no longer need the manifestation in order to feel fulfilled, you release much of the resistance that came from longing and attachment. You stop chasing because you already feel whole. You stop waiting because you are already living from the emotional state you once believed the manifestation would provide. In that moment, your desire loses its power over you, and you gain something far more valuable, inner freedom. So begin today. Instead of asking what you need to receive in order to feel fulfilled, ask yourself what fulfillment feels like. Then allow yourself to experience it now. Let gratitude become present before the blessing arrives. Let confidence exist before success appears. Let peace settle into your heart before circumstances change. The more you practice this, the more you will understand that fulfillment is not the result of manifestation. It is often the condition that allows manifestation to unfold naturally. The final piece of this paradox is understanding the power of what feels natural. Most people focus all their attention on changing external circumstances while overlooking the internal patterns that shape their experience. They try to force results, control outcomes, and constantly monitor their progress. Yet beneath all of these efforts lies a deeper factor: the assumptions they have accepted as normal. What feels natural to you has a tremendous influence on how you think, how you feel, and how you move through life. Whether you realize it or not, your experience is often shaped by what you have come to expect. Think about any belief that feels completely normal to you. You do not struggle to maintain it. You do not spend your days trying to convince yourself it is true. It simply feels obvious. Because it feels natural, you rarely question it. In the same way, the circumstances you repeatedly encounter in life are often connected to the states that feel familiar within you. If struggle feels normal, you may unconsciously expect struggle. If rejection feels normal, you may anticipate rejection. If success feels unnatural, you may resist it without realizing it. The mind tends to move toward what it recognizes as familiar. This is why forcing a manifestation rarely works for long. You may try to think positively for a few hours, repeat affirmations for a few days, or visualize intensely for a short period of time. But if your deeper assumptions remain unchanged, you often return to old patterns. Lasting change occurs when a new state becomes natural. When abundance feels normal, you stop worrying constantly about lack. When love feels normal, you stop expecting rejection. When success feels normal, you stop doubting every opportunity. The outer world begins to reflect the state that has become familiar within you. One of the reasons people often receive what they desire after they stop desperately needing it is because the desire finally begins to feel natural. During the period of intense attachment, they are constantly aware that they do not have it. Their attention remains fixed on absence. But when they let go of the struggle, something changes. They stop treating the desire as something extraordinary and distant. They stop placing it on a pedestal. Gradually, it begins to feel more ordinary, more possible, and more natural. The emotional resistance starts to fade. Consider how relaxed you feel about things you already possess. You do not spend all day wondering whether the chair in your living room will remain there tomorrow. You do not obsess over whether the sun will rise in the morning. These realities feel natural, so they create very little emotional tension. In a similar way, when your desired reality begins to feel natural in consciousness, you stop chasing it. You stop doubting it. You stop treating it as something separate from yourself. It becomes part of your inner world. The journey, then, is not about forcing yourself to believe harder. It is about becoming familiar with the feeling of already having what you desire. Through repeated experiences of gratitude, confidence, fulfillment, and inner acceptance, a new state gradually takes root. What once felt impossible begins to feel possible. What once felt possible begins to feel likely. What once felt likely eventually begins to feel natural. And this is where the paradox reaches its conclusion. The moment something feels natural, it often loses the emotional charge that came from wanting it. You are no longer desperate. You are no longer trying to prove anything. You are simply living from a different state of consciousness. From that state, your actions, expectations, and perceptions naturally align with the reality you have accepted within. So remember this principle: what feels natural tends to express itself. Instead of fighting your current reality, focus on cultivating a new inner normal. Make fulfillment familiar. Make confidence familiar. Make abundance familiar. Make success familiar. As these states become natural to you, they begin influencing every aspect of your life. And when the desired reality finally appears, it often feels less like a miracle and more like something that was always meant to happen. As we come to the end of this message, remember that the paradox of manifestation is not about abandoning your dreams. It is not about convincing yourself that you no longer care. It is about releasing the belief that you need your desire in order to be whole. There is a profound difference between wanting something and depending on it. When you constantly need a result, your attention remains fixed on its absence. You continue telling yourself that fulfillment exists somewhere in the future. But when you discover fulfillment within yourself, you change the entire dynamic. You stop living from lack and begin living from abundance. You stop waiting for life to make you happy and begin generating happiness from within. The irony is that many desires begin to move into your experience only after you stop emotionally chasing them. Not because you have given up, but because you have removed the resistance created by fear, doubt, and attachment. You no longer approach life from desperation. You approach it from confidence. You no longer seek completion through external conditions because you have already discovered it within yourself. Remember the key lesson: possession begins in consciousness. Before something can feel natural in your outer world, it must feel natural in your inner world. The more you practice the feeling of already being fulfilled, the less dependent you become on external validation. And the less dependent you become, the more freely life can flow. So let go of the struggle. Let go of the constant checking, the endless worrying, and the habit of measuring your progress by appearances. Choose instead to embody the peace, gratitude, confidence, and certainty that belong to the fulfilled version of yourself. Make these qualities your home. The moment you stop needing your desire to complete you may be the moment you finally become ready to receive it, not because you forced it into existence, but because you became aligned with it. And when alignment replaces attachment, life often responds in ways that seem almost miraculous. Trust the process, trust yourself, and above all, remember that true fulfillment begins within. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on one area of your life where you may be holding on too tightly. Ask yourself, what would change if I stopped needing this and started trusting that it is already unfolding in the right way? If you found value in this message, please like this video, share it with someone who may need these words today, and subscribe for more content focused on consciousness, personal growth, mindset, and inner transformation. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Tell me, what is one desire you are choosing to release attachment to while continuing to believe in its fulfillment. Remember, your power does not come from chasing what you want. It comes from becoming the person who already feels complete. The more you cultivate that state, the more naturally life begins to reflect it. Thank you for watching. Wishing you peace, clarity, and confidence on your journey. Until next time, take care and keep moving forward with faith.